Hello, it's Toaster Party, and today I'm going to talk about what my picks are for the 5 strongest new Pauper cards from 2023. So the year's almost over, and there's been a lot of really powerful cards put into the common format. So, without further ado, let's get into the list. Starting things off with number 5, we're splitting it between 2 cards with Troll of Khazad-dûm and Lorien Revealed. Turns out that having land cycling for 1 on good cards makes for really great cards. So with Troll of Khazad-dûm for 5 mana and a generic and a black, you get a creature troll that says it cannot be blocked except by 3 or more creatures. It also has Swamp Cycling for 1 generic mana, meaning you can discard it, search your library for a swamp card, reveal it, put it in your hand, and then shuffle. It's also a 6/5. And then also there's Lorien Revealed for 3 generic and 2 blue. You get a sorcery that says draw 3 cards, and Island Cycling for 1 generic, meaning that you discard this card and search your library for an island card, reveal it, put it in your hand, then shuffle. So both of these are very powerful cards, and the ability to either use them for their actual spell cost is both good, and the thing that really makes these cards really playable is the fact that they have the option to be able to be played as either a pretty good card or as being something that can just fix your mana. And this is some of the best mana fixing that the format has ever had. There's one for every single color, but I chose to single these 2 out because these are the ones that are the best cards, and they're the ones that are seeing the most play. I would say Lorien Revealed is probably the better of the 2 because it sees play in more decks, but Troll of Khazad-dûm is not a card to be ignored either, as it's also being played in Reanimator strategies as something that can be put into the yard on turn 1 very easily, and also then be able to use to exhume later. And then Lorien Revealed is just a very powerful card that's been seeing play in a lot of different formats. Moving now to number 4, Fanatical Offering. For generic and a black, you get an instant that says, as an additional cost to cast the spell, sack an artifact or a creature. Draw 2 cards and create a map token. Map tokens being an artifact with pay 1 generic, tap it, sack it, and then target creature control explores. So this is just a slightly worse Deadly Dispute, but Deadly Dispute is already an insanely powerful card, so being able to have a almost extra copy of that, instead of having to play versions of this that don't make artifacts, you get a version that does make an artifact. So if you just have a handful of these kind of effects, but only 1 artifact to sack, you can start chaining them together and be able to draw a lot of cards. Moving now to number 3, Tithing Blade. Speaking of good artifacts to be able to sack, for 1 generic and a black, you get an artifact that says when it enters a battlefield, each opponent sacrifices a creature. It also has the ability to craft with the creature for 4 generic and black. That means you can pay that mana cost, exile this artifact, exile a creature you control, or a creature from your graveyard. Important to note. Return this card transformed under its owner's control. Craft only as a sorcery. And the back half, Consuming Sepulchre, is an artifact that says at the beginning of your upkeep, each opponent loses 1 life and you gain 1 life. So there's a lot going on with this card that all comes together to make a very powerful card. So already, just being a artifact that has this edict effect would already make this an incredibly powerful card and probably already put it on the list. It just also seems to have the additional upside of also being able to start draining your opponent, so it's also just really good in controlling decks that can put creatures into yard from their own deck. Something like a Troll of Khazad-dûm maybe. So there's a lot of ways to be able to either sacrifice it to like a Deadly Dispute effect, or to just return it to hand using a lot of bounce effects like Glinthawk, and just play it down repeatedly for insane amounts of value. This is an incredibly powerful removal piece. Moving now to number 2, All That Glitters. For 1 generic and a white, you get an enchantment aura that says Enchant Creature. Enchanted creature gets +1/+1 for each artifact and or enchantment you control. This card has been extremely powerful and has been in the blue-white affinity decks, where this card essentially is doing its little Skull Clamp impression, and it does that very well. Because that deck can just spit out artifacts insanely fast, it's putting a very large threat on the board very quickly, and it makes for why blue-white affinity is one of the strongest decks right now. And now for number 1, and the card that is part of the strongest deck right now, we have Cryptic Serpent. For 5 generic, ha 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 ha, and 2 blue, you get a creature serpent that says, this spell costs 1 generic, lasts for each instant and sorcery card in your graveyard. It is also a 6/5. So this is just copies 5 through 8 of Tolarian Terror. It has 1 higher power and doesn't have the ward, but just having more copies of what's basically Tolarian Terror is incredibly good. So this is part of the many blue or blue-black control decks that have a lot of pieces that fill the yard with instants and sorceries, stuff like Lorien Revealed, and then just put down these really big creatures and then use all those control spells that are in their hand to control the board while beating face with these giant things that'll end the game really quickly. An incredibly powerful card that makes for probably what is the best deck right now. Well, thank you all for watching. Hope you leave a like, comment, and subscribe, and I hope you all have an excellent day.